The bank statement glowed on the laptop screen at 2:47 a.m. Naomi stared at the number that made her stomach drop. $0. Their joint savings account, the one that held $340,000 from her grandmother's inheritance, was completely empty. She clicked refresh. The same zero stared back at her. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the transaction history. Transfer after transfer. $50,000 here. $75,000 there. All authorized by her husband Brandon's login credentials. All sent to an account she didn't recognize. Naomi had come downstairs for a glass of water after another sleepless night. Brandon had been distant for months, always on his phone, always working late. She'd opened the laptop just to check their account balance before paying the mortgage tomorrow. Now she sat frozen in their home office, watching her entire financial security vanish into the digital void. The transfers went back 18 months. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, moved in careful increments. Not large enough to trigger automatic bank alerts, but systematic. Deliberate. Planned. She opened their credit card statements next. Her throat tightened. Brandon had credit cards she didn't know about. 5 different cards, all maxed out. Charges for jewelry stores, luxury hotels, restaurants she'd never been to. A charge for $47,000 at a real estate office dated 3 months ago. Real estate. Naomi's professional training as a financial analyst kicked in despite her shock. She began taking screenshots, downloading statements, creating a folder on her phone titled, Tax Documents 2024. Her hands shook, but her mind cleared with each piece of evidence she gathered. A receipt fell out from between some papers on Brandon's desk. Tiffany & Company. Diamond tennis bracelet. $28,500. Purchased 6 weeks ago. She'd never received a diamond bracelet. Naomi walked to their bedroom where Brandon slept peacefully, his phone charging on the nightstand. She stood in the doorway watching him breathe, this man she'd been married to for 8 years. This man she'd built a life with. This man who had systematically stolen her inheritance while she slept beside him every night. She didn't wake him. Instead, she returned to the office and kept digging. By 5 a.m. she'd found more. Bank statements showed cash withdrawals totaling $89,000. Her credit score had dropped by 150 points due to accounts she never opened. There were loan applications in her name, all denied, but the inquiries had damaged her credit. The property records were the worst. Brandon had purchased a condo downtown. A luxury unit in the Pearl District. Purchase price, $525,000. Down payment, $105,000, from their joint account. The deed showed 2 names, Brandon Mitchell and Sienna Crawford. Sienna Crawford. Naomi typed the name into social media. A beautiful woman with perfect makeup and designer clothes filled the screen. Her bio read, Luxury lifestyle influencer, entrepreneur living my best life. Every photo showed expensive restaurants, designer bags, exotic vacations. In several recent photos, Naomi spotted a familiar watch, the Tag Heuer she'd bought Brandon for their anniversary. In another, a glimpse of his car in the background. Sienna's latest post from 2 days ago, when he treats you like the queen you are, with photos of the diamond tennis bracelet. The same $28,500 bracelet from the receipt. The comments were filled with praise. You deserve it all. Your man knows how to treat you right. Relationship goals. All paid for with Naomi's inheritance money. She kept scrolling, documenting everything. Screenshots of every photo, every post, every comment. Her grandmother had worked her whole life to save that money. She'd left it to Naomi with a handwritten note. Build something beautiful, my dear girl. Be independent. Be free. Brandon had stolen that freedom and given it to another woman. As dawn light filtered through the window, Naomi heard Brandon's alarm go off upstairs. She closed the laptop quickly and returned to bed, slipping under the covers just as he emerged from the bathroom. Morning, he said, checking his phone immediately. Morning, Naomi replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. He kissed her forehead absently, already distracted. I've got early meetings today. Don't wait up tonight, probably working late again. Working late. The lie came so easily to him. Okay, she said softly. Have a good day. Brandon left for work 30 minutes later. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, Naomi was back at the computer. She created a new email account he didn't know about. She backed up every document to the cloud. She downloaded 18 months of banking records, credit card statements, and transaction histories. Then she made her first call, to a divorce attorney whose name she'd found through a discreet online search for lawyers specializing in financial fraud. "I need to document everything before he knows I know," Naomi explained to the receptionist. "My husband has stolen my entire inheritance and given it to another woman. I need to understand my legal options." The attorney, Patricia Wong, could see her that afternoon. Naomi's second call was to a private investigation firm. "I need to know everything," she told them. "Every transaction, every meeting, every lie. I need documentation that will hold up in court." They could start immediately. Her third call was to a forensic accountant recommended by the investigator. By noon, Naomi had assembled a team. By evening, she provided them with every piece of evidence she'd gathered. By the time Brandon came home at 9 p.m., smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't hers, Naomi was sitting calmly on the couch watching television. "Hey babe," he said, kissing her cheek. "Sorry I'm so late. The Henderson deal is killing me." "It's okay," Naomi said, smiling at him. "I know you're working hard." He squeezed her shoulder and headed upstairs to shower. Naomi turned back to the TV, but she wasn't watching it anymore. Her mind was calculating, planning, preparing. Brandon thought he'd been clever, stealing from her slowly over 18 months. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated her. Her grandmother hadn't raised a fool. She'd raised a woman who knew how to fight smart, not loud. A woman who understood that the best revenge wasn't hot and explosive, it was cold, calculated, and utterly devastating. Brandon had taken everything from her while wearing a smile. She would return the favor. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of Naomi playing the perfect, oblivious wife while her team worked in the shadows. She made Brandon breakfast every morning, packed his lunch, asked about his day, laughed at his jokes, all while screenshots, bank records, and surveillance photos accumulated in her private files. The private investigator, a retired police detective named Frank Torres, delivered his first report on a Tuesday afternoon. They met at a coffee shop across town where nobody knew her. "Your husband is methodical," Frank said, sliding a folder across the table. "He's been seeing Sienna Crawford for 3 years, not 18 months. The financial theft started later, but the relationship? That's been going on much longer." Naomi opened the folder. Photos of Brandon and Sienna at restaurants, hotels, shopping together. Time-stamped images showing a pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, weekend afternoons when he claimed to be golfing. "He told her he was separated from you," Frank continued. "Planning to divorce but waiting for the right time. She believes they're building a future together." "With my money," Naomi said flatly. "With your money," Frank confirmed. "But there's more. Sienna isn't just a mistress. She's got a history. 2 previous relationships with married men, both ended when the wives found out and the money dried up. She's strategic about this." The report detailed Sienna's background. Failed boutique business. Mounting credit card debt. Eviction notices from her previous apartment. Then suddenly 2 years ago her financial situation transformed. Luxury condo. Designer clothes. Exotic vacations. All coinciding with when Brandon's withdrawals began. "She knows exactly what she's doing," Naomi said. "Absolutely," Frank agreed. "And your husband made it easy for her. The condo he bought? It's in both their names, but he made the down payment and covers the mortgage. She pays nothing. He's essentially her personal ATM." Naomi studied the photos. Brandon looked happy in them, younger somehow. He laughed in ways she hadn't seen in years. It should have hurt more than it did. Instead, she felt a cold clarity. "What about the credit cards in my name?" she asked. Frank's expression darkened. "That's where this becomes criminal. He forged your signature on 3 credit card applications. Opened accounts using your social security number without your knowledge or consent. That's identity theft." He pulled out another document. The forensic accountant found more. "Brandon took out a $75,000 loan against your car, the one you bought before marriage that's solely in your name. He forged your signature on the loan documents." Naomi's hands clenched around her coffee cup. "That's fraud." "Multiple counts," Frank confirmed. "Identity theft, forgery, embezzlement from joint accounts. The prosecutor I spoke with off the record says you have a solid criminal case, not just civil." The forensic accountant's report was even more damning. Line by line, it traced every dollar Brandon had stolen. The $340,000 from savings was just the beginning. Joint credit cards maxed out, $67,000. The forged loan against her car, $75,000. Cash advances from credit cards, $34,000. Total theft, $516,000. $500,000 spent on another woman while Naomi worked 50-hour weeks to contribute to their household. There's something else, Frank said carefully. Sienna has been posting about your husband on social media, but she never uses his real name. She calls him B, or my love, or just posts photos without tagging him. She's being careful not to leave a direct trail. Because she knows he's married, Naomi said. Yes. And according to our surveillance, they're planning something. Brandon's been looking at property in Costa Rica. Retirement homes, actually. We intercepted an email where he told Sienna they'd be moving there within 6 months. Naomi's blood ran cold. 6 months. He was planning to drain everything and disappear with her to another country. He doesn't know you know any of this, Frank said. You've been perfect, not a single sign you suspect anything. That gives us the advantage. Naomi nodded slowly. Keep documenting everything. I want to know every place they go, every dollar he spends, every plan they make. What's your endgame here? Frank asked gently. Naomi met his eyes. I want everything he took from me back. I want him to face criminal charges. And I want both of them to understand exactly who they stole from. Frank smiled grimly. Then you'll need to be patient a bit longer. The stronger our evidence, the less room he has to maneuver. That night, Brandon came home early with flowers. For my beautiful wife, he said, handing her roses. I know I've been working a lot lately. Wanted to remind you how much you mean to me. Naomi arranged the flowers in a vase, smiling. They're lovely. Thank you. He pulled her close. I'm lucky to have you, you know that? I know, she said, resting her head against his chest while her mind catalogued the evidence. The flowers cost $30 according to the receipt sticking out of the wrapping, charged to one of their joint credit cards. Meanwhile, he'd spent $3,500 on jewelry for Sienna just 3 days ago. What do you want for dinner? She asked. Whatever you want to make, babe. I'm easy. Easy. The word almost made her laugh. Over the next 2 weeks, Naomi continued her double life. During the day, she went to work at the financial consulting firm where she'd worked for 6 years, analyzing investment portfolios and advising clients on asset protection. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd spent years helping others protect their money while her husband systematically stole hers. In the evenings, she met with her attorney, reviewed surveillance reports, and built her case. Patricia Wong was thorough and fierce. We'll file for divorce, but we'll also pursue criminal charges, Patricia explained during one meeting. Financial fraud, identity theft, forgery. He'll face jail time if convicted. And in civil court, we'll recover everything he stole plus damages for emotional distress and punitive damages for the fraud. How do we keep him from hiding assets before the divorce? Naomi asked. We'll request an emergency order freezing all accounts the moment we file. He won't have time to move money. But timing is everything. We need to strike when he thinks he's safe. Frank provided the perfect opportunity. Brandon just booked a weekend trip for him and Sienna to Napa Valley. They're leaving Friday afternoon, coming back Sunday evening. That gives us a window. Patricia smiled. Perfect. We'll serve him the divorce papers at his office Friday morning, then freeze all accounts immediately. He'll be blindsided. Naomi reviewed the plan carefully. Serve papers publicly at his workplace. Maximum humiliation where he'd built his professional reputation on being a family man. Freeze accounts before he could react. File criminal complaints with evidence that left no room for denial. One thing, Naomi said. I want to be there when he's served. Patricia raised an eyebrow. That's unusual. I've been the fool for 3 years. I want him to see my face when his world collapses. Frank and Patricia exchanged glances. All right, Patricia agreed. We'll arrange it. The night before, Naomi couldn't sleep. She lay next to Brandon in their bed, listening to him breathe. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow he would finally understand what he'd done. Her phone buzzed quietly. A text from Frank. Final surveillance report ready. Everything documented. See you tomorrow. Another text from Patricia. Papers ready. Process server briefed. Are you ready for this? Naomi typed back, yes. She was more than ready. She'd been patient for 6 weeks, gathering evidence, building an airtight case, preparing for war. Brandon had stolen 18 months of her life and $500,000. Tomorrow she'd take it all back. Friday morning arrived with clear skies. Naomi woke before her alarm, adrenaline already flooding her system. Beside her, Brandon slept peacefully, unaware that his carefully constructed double life was about to implode. She got up quietly, showered, and dressed in her best suit, a sharp navy blue power outfit her grandmother had bought her for her first big job interview. Armor for battle. Brandon woke as she was applying lipstick. "You're dressed up," he observed, checking his phone. "Big meeting today?" "Something like that," Naomi said, meeting his eyes in the mirror. He smiled, that easy, casual smile she used to love. "Well, you look great. Hey, I'm heading out early today. Remember, I've got that business conference in Napa this weekend." Business conference. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. "Right," Naomi said. "Have fun." "It'll be boring meetings and networking," he said, kissing her forehead. "But duty calls. I'll be back Sunday night." Sunday night. When he'd actually be returning from a romantic weekend with Sienna at a luxury resort. Frank's surveillance had captured the reservation. Couples massage, champagne dinner, the works. All charged to their joint credit card. Brandon left for work at 7:30. Naomi waited until his car disappeared, then made her own drive to his office building downtown. Patricia was waiting in the parking garage, along with Frank and a process server named Tim. "Last chance to back out," Patricia said gently. "Once we do this, there's no going back." "I'm not backing out," Naomi said firmly. "Let's go." They entered the building lobby at 8:15. Brandon's office was on the 12th floor. The elevator ride felt endless, each floor dinging by while Naomi's heart hammered. "You okay?" Frank asked quietly. "Perfect," Naomi said. And she was. For the first time in weeks, she felt completely clear. No more pretending. No more lying next to someone who'd betrayed her. No more being a fool. The elevator doors opened. Brandon's firm, Mitchell and Associates Consulting, occupied the entire floor. The glass doors revealed a busy open office space, people already at their desks, coffee brewing, the morning routine underway. Tim, the process server, led the way. Patricia and Frank flanked Naomi as they walked through the glass doors. The receptionist looked up. "I'm here to see Brandon Mitchell," Tim said, showing his credentials. "Legal matter." The receptionist's eyes widened. Let me just." "It's okay," Naomi said, stepping forward. "I know where his office is." She walked through the maze of cubicles toward Brandon's corner office, aware of heads turning, conversations stopping. Let them watch. Let them all see. Brandon was at his desk, on the phone, laughing. Through the glass wall of his office, she could see him leaning back in his chair, completely relaxed. He glanced up, saw her, and his expression shifted from surprise to confusion. He ended his call quickly. "Naomi? What are you?" Tim pushed open the door. "Brandon Mitchell?" "Yes." "You've been served." Tim handed him a thick manila envelope. "Divorce proceedings and civil suit. You're required to respond within 30 days. The blood drained from Brandon's face. "What?" Naomi stepped into his office, Patricia and Frank behind her. By now, half the office had gathered outside, watching through the glass walls. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Naomi asked quietly. Brandon stood, hands shaking as he tore open the envelope. His eyes scanned the first page, petition for dissolution of marriage. The second page, fraud and embezzlement charges. The third page, evidence of identity theft. "Naomi, wait, I can explain." "Explain what?" She cut him off. "Explain how you stole $516,000 from me? Explain the condo you bought for your mistress with my inheritance? Explain the credit cards you opened in my name by forging my signature." His face went white. Around them his co-workers stared. "Or maybe," Naomi continued, her voice steady and cold, "you want to explain the romantic weekend in Napa you're about to take with Sienna Crawford instead of the business conference you told me about?" Brandon's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Patricia stepped forward. "Mr. Mitchell, as of 8:30 this morning, all joint accounts have been frozen by court order. You'll receive notice that criminal charges are being filed for identity theft, fraud, and embezzlement. You have the right to retain an attorney." "Criminal charges?" Brandon's voice cracked. "Naomi, please, we can work this out." "No," Naomi said simply. "We can't. You stole from me for 3 years. You lied to my face every single day. You took the inheritance my grandmother left me and gave it to another woman. You forged my signature and destroyed my credit. There's nothing to work out." She pulled out her phone and opened Sienna's social media profile, showing him the photo of the tennis bracelet. "This cost $28,500. My money. Every vacation she posted, every designer bag, every luxury item, all paid for with money you stole from me." Brandon reached for her. "Please, let's talk about this privately." Naomi stepped back. We'll talk through lawyers. And prosecutors. She turned to leave but stopped at the door. The entire office was watching now, a crowd gathered outside Brandon's glass walls. She met his eyes one final time. You made a mistake, she said clearly. You thought I was weak. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I'd just accept it. But my grandmother didn't raise a victim. She raised a woman who fights back. She walked out of his office with her head high, Patricia and Frank following. Behind her, she heard Brandon's voice calling her name, desperate and breaking. She didn't turn around. The receptionist stared as they passed. People whispered. Someone took out their phone. It let everyone know what Brandon Mitchell really was. They rode the elevator down in silence. It wasn't until they reached Naomi's car that she allowed herself to breathe fully. You did great, Patricia said. That was perfect. What happens now? Naomi asked. Now we wait for his response. He has 30 days to reply to the divorce petition. Meanwhile, the criminal investigation begins. Frank's evidence goes to the prosecutor. And with the accounts frozen, he can't hide or move assets. Frank checked his phone. My team just confirmed. Brandon tried to access the joint accounts. All denied. He's also frantically calling Sienna. Let them panic, Naomi said. They built this relationship on stolen money. Let's see how it holds up when the money's gone. She drove home, hands steady on the wheel. The house felt different now, lighter somehow. She walked through rooms she'd shared with Brandon, seeing them with new eyes. This was her home now. Her space. Her life to rebuild. Her phone rang. Brandon's number. She declined the call. It rang again. Declined. A text appeared. Please answer. We need to talk. This is a mistake. Naomi blocked his number. Another call came through, unknown number. She answered. You bitch, a woman's voice screamed. How dare you? Brandon loves me. We're together. You're just trying to ruin his life because you can't handle that he moved on. Sienna. Of course. He moved on with my money, Naomi said calmly. Every dollar he spent on you was stolen from me. Identity theft. Fraud. Those are felonies. He said he was separated. He said you were getting divorced anyway. He lied to you just like he lied to me, Naomi replied. The difference is I'm the legal wife whose money he stole. You're an accessory to financial fraud. I hope that tennis bracelet was worth it. She hung up and blocked that number too. Patricia called an hour later. Brandon's trying to negotiate. His lawyer called me. He wants to settle quietly, no criminal charges. No, Naomi said immediately. I thought you'd say that. Just wanted to confirm. The prosecutor is interested, they're building a case. This could take months, but with your evidence, it's solid. I've waited 3 years, Naomi said. I can wait a few more months to see justice done. That evening, Naomi sat alone in her house with a glass of wine and her grandmother's photo. I'm not letting him get away with it, Grandma, she said quietly. He took what you worked so hard for. But I'm getting it back. All of it. Her phone buzzed with emails from Frank. More surveillance photos from that day. Brandon frantically making calls in his car. Sienna screaming at him in the parking garage of their condo. Both of them realizing their carefully built fantasy was crumbling. Naomi saved every image, every piece of evidence. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice. About accountability. About refusing to be a victim. Brandon had spent 3 years thinking he was clever. Now he was about to learn the cost of underestimating her. The weekend Brandon was supposed to be in Napa with Sienna, Naomi stayed home and planned her next moves. Patricia had filed all the paperwork. The criminal complaint was with the prosecutor's office. The accounts were frozen. Now came the hard part, watching everything unfold. Saturday morning Frank called. You're going to want to see this. He sent her a link to a private investigator's report. Brandon had shown up at Sienna's condo Friday night after being served the papers. The surveillance footage showed them arguing violently on the street. We have audio too, Frank said. Your attorney might want it for the case. Naomi listened to the recording. Sienna's voice was shrill. You said you were divorced. You said the money was yours. Now the police are asking me questions about fraud. Brandon's response, I'm handling it. We just need to lay low. Lay low? Brandon, you lied to me. You stole from your wife. She's pressing criminal charges. I could go to prison. You won't go to prison. You didn't know. Didn't know? I knew you were married. You said you were separated. You said she knew about us. The argument escalated. Threats. Accusations. The sound of something breaking. They're turning on each other, Frank observed. Classic pattern when criminals face consequences. The surveillance continued throughout the weekend. Brandon tried to access his office remotely, denied. He called his bank, accounts frozen. He showed up at Sienna's place multiple times, she wouldn't let him in after Saturday night's fight. By Sunday evening, Brandon was sitting alone in his car outside their house, clearly afraid to come inside. Naomi had changed the locks that morning. When he finally approached the front door, his key didn't work. He knocked. Naomi didn't answer. He called her new phone number, the one he didn't have. He tried the windows. Eventually he left. Patricia texted, hotel records show he checked into a Motel 6. His credit cards are maxed out and the joint accounts are frozen. He can't afford anything better. Perfect. Monday morning, Naomi went to work as usual. Her boss, Helen, called her into her office. I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. News traveled fast in their industry. Several people had seen the confrontation at Brandon's office Friday, and by Monday it was all over their professional network. Thank you, Naomi said. I'm handling it. If you need time off. I don't, Naomi said firmly. Work is actually the best distraction right now. What she didn't tell Helen was that work was more than a distraction. It was research. Naomi spent her lunch breaks reviewing case files of other financial fraud victims. She studied their mistakes, their successes, how they rebuilt their lives afterward. She learned about asset protection, credit repair, and victim compensation funds. She researched precedents for cases like hers, spouses who stole inheritances, forged signatures, committed identity theft. The patterns were depressingly similar. In most cases, the victims had felt embarrassed or afraid to pursue full prosecution. They'd settled privately, gotten some money back, but let their abusers avoid real consequences. Naomi wouldn't make that mistake. Tuesday brought new developments. The prosecutor's office called Patricia. They want to meet with you, Patricia told Naomi. They're considering criminal charges not just against Brandon, but against Sienna too. What would she be charged with? Naomi asked. Accessory to fraud, potentially money laundering. If they can prove she knew the money was stolen, and your evidence suggests she did, she could face serious charges. They met with Assistant District Attorney Thomas Reed on Wednesday. He was a serious man with gray hair and sharp eyes who reviewed their evidence carefully. This is one of the most well-documented cases I've seen, Thomas said. Most financial fraud cases between spouses are hard to prove because everything's murky. But you have clear evidence of forgery, identity theft, and systematic embezzlement. He spread out the documents. Forged signatures on loan applications. Credit cards opened in your name without authorization. Transfers from joint accounts used exclusively for the other woman. Text messages discussing hiding assets. This is prosecutable. What about Sienna Crawford? Naomi asked. Thomas pulled up his own file. She's interesting. We've been investigating her independently. She has a pattern. This is the third married man she's been involved with who faced financial fraud charges. The first two wives didn't press charges, but we have evidence she was actively involved in encouraging the theft. He showed them text messages recovered from Brandon's phone. Messages from Sienna. That necklace is $15,000, but I deserve it after what I put up with. Just transfer it before she notices. She doesn't need to know everything. When are you leaving her? I'm tired of waiting. She knew he was stealing, Thomas said flatly. She encouraged it. She benefited from it. That makes her an accessory. How long until charges are filed? Patricia asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. We want to make sure the case is airtight. Naomi felt a cold satisfaction. Brandon had betrayed her. Sienna had knowingly participated. Both would face consequences. But the legal process was just beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, Naomi's life became a series of meetings, with lawyers, with accountants, with credit repair specialists working to fix the damage Brandon had done to her credit score. She filed police reports for identity theft. She contacted every creditor to dispute fraudulent charges. She worked with her bank to trace every dollar Brandon had stolen. The forensic accountant, a meticulous woman named Grace Chin, uncovered even more. He didn't just steal from you, Grace reported. He stole from his employer too. About $80,000 over 2 years, hidden in false expense reports. His company knows? They do now. I sent them my findings. They're conducting their own investigation. On Thursday of the second week, Brandon was fired from his job. Not just fired, terminated for cause with immediate effect. No severance. No references. His professional reputation destroyed. Frank's surveillance showed Brandon's reaction. He sat in his car in the office parking lot for 2 hours, head in his hands, completely broken. Naomi felt nothing. No sympathy. No satisfaction. Just cold calculation about the next steps. Friday brought more evidence. Sienna had started contacting Brandon's friends, trying to convince them that Naomi was lying, that this was all a misunderstanding, that Brandon was the victim of a vindictive wife. Nobody believed her. Frank had made sure key people saw the evidence first. Then Sienna made her biggest mistake. She posted about it online. Her social media post appeared Saturday morning. Sometimes people show their true colors when things get hard. Being punished for falling in love isn't fair. The truth will come out. The comments section exploded. People who'd followed her luxury lifestyle posts started asking questions. Where did all that money come from? Who was funding her lifestyle? Was it true her boyfriend was married? Someone found the property records showing the condo Brandon bought her. Someone else linked his LinkedIn profile to news articles about his firing. The internet did what the internet does. It investigated. By Saturday evening, Sienna's carefully curated online image was in ruins. People posted screenshots of her old posts with the tennis bracelet, the luxury vacations, the designer bags, all tagged with #stolen money and #mistress. She deleted her accounts by Sunday morning. But the internet is forever. People had saved everything. Monday brought the news Naomi had been waiting for. Patricia called. Criminal charges filed. Brandon is being charged with identity theft, forgery, embezzlement, and fraud. Sienna is being charged as an accessory. What happens now? Arraignment is scheduled for next week. They'll both have to appear in court. This is public record now. Anyone can access it. Public record. Brandon's nightmare was just beginning. The local newspaper picked up the story that evening. Local consultant charged with defrauding wife, giving money to mistress. The article detailed the charges, the amount stolen, the systematic nature of the theft. Brandon's name was in print, along with the accusations. His professional network would see it. His friends would see it. His family would see it. Naomi's phone rang constantly, friends reaching out with support, former colleagues expressing shock, family members calling to check on her. She handled each call with grace, thanking people for their concern but not dwelling on the details. She had work to do. Wednesday, she met with a business consultant who specialized in helping fraud victims rebuild their finances. You have a unique skill set, the consultant Robert told her. You're a financial analyst who's experienced this firsthand. Have you thought about turning that into something? What do you mean? Consulting. Teaching other women how to protect their assets, how to spot financial abuse, how to rebuild after fraud. There's a huge need for this. The idea planted itself in Naomi's mind. She'd always focused on corporate finance, investment portfolios, institutional analysis. But this, helping people who'd been where she was, felt different. Personal. Meaningful. I'd need more than just my experience, Naomi said. So get trained. Take courses on financial counseling, victim advocacy, asset protection. Combine your professional expertise with your personal experience. You could be really valuable to people going through what you went through. That night, Naomi researched programs for financial counselors specializing in fraud recovery. She found certifications, training programs, victim advocacy courses. By midnight, she'd applied to 3 different programs. If Brandon had taught her anything, it was that she couldn't rely on anyone else for her security. She had to build something of her own. Something he couldn't touch. Something that gave her purpose beyond just recovering what was stolen. The arraignment was scheduled for Friday. Patricia prepared her for what to expect. Brandon and Sienna would both appear, enter pleas, and the judge would set bail and trial dates. You don't have to go, Patricia said. The victims rarely attend arraignments. I'm going, Naomi said. I want him to see me in that courtroom. I want him to understand this is real. Friday morning, Naomi dressed carefully again in her power suit. She arrived at the courthouse early, sitting in the back of the courtroom gallery as other cases were heard first. Then Brandon's case was called. He entered from a side door, handcuffed, wearing an orange jumpsuit. He'd been arrested Thursday night. His lawyer stood beside him, a public defender because he couldn't afford private counsel anymore. Sienna entered separately, also in handcuffs, also with a public defender. She looked nothing like her social media photos. No makeup, hair pulled back, face pale and frightened. The judge read the charges. Identity theft, fraud, embezzlement, forgery, accessory to fraud. How do you plead? The judge asked Brandon. Brandon's voice was barely audible. Not guilty, Your Honor. Sienna pleaded the same. The judge set bail, $100,000 each. Neither could pay it. They'd be held until trial. As they were led away, Brandon's eyes scanned the courtroom. They landed on Naomi sitting calmly in the back row. For a moment their eyes locked. She saw fear in his face. Desperation. A silent plea. She looked away. Later, outside the courthouse, Patricia explained next steps. Trial is set for 3 months from now. In the meantime, we continue with the civil case, recovering your money from the property sales, from his assets, everything. What about the condo he bought, Sienna? It's being seized as proceeds of crime. Will be sold to recover your losses. The car he bought her too. Every asset purchased with stolen money is fair game. Justice was slow but thorough. 3 months to trial. 3 months to rebuild. 3 months to transform her pain into power. Naomi was ready. While Brandon and Sienna sat in jail awaiting trial, unable to post bail, Naomi rebuilt her life piece by piece. The first step was recovering her finances. Patricia worked with the court to liquidate assets. The condo was sold at auction, bringing in $480,000 after fees. Sienna's car, purchased with stolen funds, sold for $45,000. Jewelry and other luxury items were seized and sold, bringing in another $67,000. Combined with Brandon's remaining assets, his car, his investment accounts, even his expensive watch collection, Naomi recovered $628,000. More than he'd stolen, thanks to appreciation in real estate and careful asset management by the court-appointed receiver. Grace, the forensic accountant, helped her navigate the credit repair process. It'll take time, but we'll get your credit score back, Grace assured her. We'll dispute every fraudulent account, every forged signature. Document it all properly. Naomi worked methodically through the process. Letters to credit bureaus. Police reports attached to every dispute. Copies of the criminal charges against Brandon. Within 2 months, her credit score had climbed back 100 points. Not perfect yet, but improving. She focused on work with renewed intensity. Her performance at the firm had always been strong, but now she approached it with purpose. She took on more clients, volunteered for complex cases, and earned a reputation for thoroughness that impressed even the senior partners. Helen called her in for a review. Your work has been exceptional these past few months. I know you've been going through hell personally, but you haven't let it affect your performance. That takes strength. Thank you, Naomi said. Honestly, work has been my anchor. It's the one place where I feel completely in control. I'm promoting you to senior analyst, Helen said. 20% raise, your own team, and first consideration for partner track when positions open up. The promotion came with a corner office and direct reports. Naomi threw herself into managing her new team, mentoring junior analysts and building relationships with high-profile clients. But more important than the corporate success were the evenings when she attended her financial counseling courses. 3 nights a week, she learned about victim advocacy, trauma-informed financial planning, asset protection strategies, and recovery from financial abuse. Her classmates came from diverse backgrounds: social workers, divorce attorneys, former fraud victims, financial planners. They shared stories that mirrored aspects of her own experience. Women who'd discovered hidden debt. Men who'd had their identities stolen by partners. People who'd lost everything and had to rebuild. Naomi found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. I felt so stupid, she admitted during one session. I'm a financial analyst. I should have noticed. I should have protected myself better. Her instructor, Professor Martinez, shook her head. Abuse relies on trust. The people who hurt us most are the ones we trusted most. That's not stupidity, that's being human. The fact that you're here learning to help others? That's strength. The certification program taught her practical skills: how to create financial safety plans, how to hide assets legally before leaving abusive relationships, how to document abuse for court cases, how to rebuild credit and financial security after devastation. But it also taught her something else: she wasn't alone. Financial abuse was shockingly common, and most victims never recovered fully because they didn't know how, or they were too ashamed to seek help. Naomi decided she could change that. On weekends, she began drafting a business plan. A consulting firm specializing in financial recovery for fraud and abuse survivors. Services would include asset protection planning, credit repair, forensic accounting to find hidden money, and advocacy through the legal system. She researched the market. Divorce attorneys needed expert witnesses and consultants. Domestic violence shelters needed financial advisors. Prosecutors needed forensic accountants. There was a massive need for specialized services, and very few people qualified to provide them. By the time Brandon's trial date approached, Naomi had her business plan complete, her certifications in progress, and 3 potential clients lined up through referrals from Patricia and her support group. The trial itself was scheduled for Monday, 3 months after the arraignment. Patricia called Sunday night. "Are you ready?" "Yes," Naomi said. She'd been preparing for months. Monday morning, the courtroom filled with press, observers, and both families. Brandon's parents sat on one side, his mother crying quietly. Sienna's family stayed away. Frank's research showed they disowned her after the arrest. The prosecutor, Thomas Reed, presented his case methodically. Bank records showing systematic theft. Forged documents with expert testimony confirming the signatures weren't Naomi's. Text messages between Brandon and Sienna discussing hiding money. Surveillance footage showing their relationship while Brandon was still living with Naomi. The evidence was overwhelming. Brandon's defense attorney tried to argue he'd intended to pay it back, that it was a loan not theft, that the marriage was failing anyway so the money was partially his. Thomas demolished every argument. This wasn't marital property. This was a separate inheritance kept in a separate account. Mr. Mitchell had no legal claim to these funds. He stole them through deception and forgery. He committed identity theft against his wife. These are crimes, not marital disputes. Naomi took the stand on day 3. She'd practiced her testimony with Patricia for hours. "Can you describe discovering the theft?" Thomas asked. Naomi spoke clearly, looking directly at the jury. "I woke up at 2 in the morning for water. I checked our bank account to verify the balance before paying the mortgage. The account my grandmother's inheritance was in, $340,000, was empty. Completely empty." She detailed her investigation, her documentation, her discovery of the full extent of Brandon's crimes. She kept her voice steady, her facts clear, her emotions controlled. When Brandon's attorney cross-examined her, he tried to suggest she'd been a distant wife, that Brandon had felt neglected, that she bore some responsibility for the marriage's failure. "Is this true?" the attorney asked. "Whether I was a perfect wife is irrelevant," Naomi responded calmly. "My husband didn't divorce me. He didn't discuss his feelings. He stole from me. He forged my signature. He committed crimes. Those are choices he made. Not marital problems." The jury nodded. Sienna's testimony was worse for the defense. Under oath, she tried to claim she didn't know the money was stolen. Thomas produced text messages showing she'd explicitly told Brandon to take it before she notices, and asking, "When are you finally leaving her?" "Does this sound like someone who didn't know?" Thomas asked the jury. The verdict came back Friday afternoon. Guilty on all counts for Brandon. Guilty as an accessory for Sienna. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Naomi attended that too. The judge reviewed the evidence, the pre-sentencing reports, character statements. Then he spoke directly to Brandon. "You systematically defrauded your wife over a period of 3 years. You stole her inheritance, money left to her by a grandmother who worked hard to provide for her family. You forged her signature, destroyed her credit, and violated her trust in the most fundamental way. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was calculated, ongoing criminal behavior." Brandon's sentence: 5 years in federal prison for financial fraud. Restitution of all funds plus damages. Permanent criminal record. Sienna received 3 years for accessory charges and accepting stolen property. As they were led away, Brandon turned back one last time. Naomi met his eyes but felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no satisfaction. He was just a stranger who'd once shared her life and then destroyed it. She turned away and walked out of the courthouse. Outside, Patricia hugged her. "It's over. You won." "No," Naomi said. "This part is over. But the real work is just beginning." The following Monday, Naomi submitted her resignation to the firm. Helen tried to convince her to stay, but Naomi had made up her mind. "I need to do something that matters more than corporate profits," she explained. "I need to help people who've been where I was." Helen understood. "If you ever need references or contacts, I'm here." Naomi used the recovered funds to do 3 things. First, she paid off every debt, clearing her name completely. Second, she invested a significant portion to generate passive income. Third, she used the rest to launch her consulting business. She called it Phoenix Financial Services, rising from the ashes. Her first office was small, just her and a desk in a shared workspace. But her first client came through a referral from Patricia, a woman whose husband had drained their retirement to fund a gambling addiction. Naomi sat across from the woman, seeing her own pain reflected back. "I understand," she said quietly. "And I can help you recover. Not just the money but your sense of security, your confidence, your future." The woman started crying. "I thought I was the only one. I thought it was my fault for not noticing." "It's not your fault," Naomi said firmly. "And you're not alone. Not anymore." She helped that woman recover $87,000 through careful forensic accounting and legal action. She helped another client hide assets legally before leaving an abusive marriage. She testified as an expert witness in 3 divorce cases. Word spread. Within 6 months, Phoenix Financial Services had 10 clients. Within a year, she'd hired 2 employees and moved to a real office. Her grandmother would have been proud. 2 years after Brandon's sentencing, Naomi stood in her new office overlooking the city, reviewing client files for the week ahead. Phoenix Financial Services now occupied an entire floor with 12 employees, from forensic accountants to victim advocates to legal consultants. They'd helped over 200 clients recover from financial abuse, fraud, and theft. The business had grown beyond Naomi's wildest expectations, not because she was a brilliant entrepreneur, but because the need was so enormous and so underserved. Her assistant, Rebecca, knocked on the door. "Your 3 o'clock is here. Jenna Patterson." Naomi reviewed the intake form quickly. Jenna, age 34, discovered her husband had mortgaged their house without her knowledge and gambled away the money. She was facing foreclosure with 3 kids and no idea how to fight back. Naomi had been that woman once. Maybe not the exact circumstances, but the same feeling of helpless panic, of having your security ripped away by someone you trusted. Jenna entered hesitantly, a thin woman with tired eyes. "Thank you for seeing me. I didn't know who else to call." "Sit down," Naomi said gently. "Tell me everything." Over the next hour, Jenna detailed her nightmare. A mortgage taken out in both names but without her signature. Her husband had forged it. $180,000 gone to online gambling sites. The bank threatening foreclosure in 45 days. Naomi took notes carefully. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, you're not losing your house. We'll prove the mortgage was fraudulent. I'll bring in our handwriting expert. Second, we'll pursue criminal charges against your husband for forgery and fraud. Third, we'll sue the bank for not properly verifying the signature before approving the mortgage." Jenna's eyes filled with tears. "I can't afford." "We work on a sliding scale," Naomi interrupted. "Payment comes from recovered funds. If we don't recover anything, you owe nothing. But we will recover. I promise you that." It was the same promise Patricia had made to her years ago. The same commitment to justice that had saved Naomi's life. Jenna left the office with hope for the first time in months. Naomi assigned her case to her senior forensic accountant and her best litigator. They'd save Jenna's house. They'd hold her husband accountable. They'd help her rebuild. The next client was different. A man whose business partner had embezzled funds. Then a woman whose elderly mother's caregiver had stolen her savings. Case after case, person after person, all carrying the same wound of betrayal, all needing someone who understood. Naomi had found her purpose. That evening, she attended a speaking engagement at a women's business conference. The topic, Protecting Your Assets, Financial Security After Betrayal. The room was packed with over 300 women. Naomi stood at the podium, looking out at faces eager for information, for hope, for solutions. "Show of hands," she began. "How many of you know someone who's experienced financial abuse or fraud in a relationship?" Nearly every hand went up. "How many of you have experienced it yourselves?" About half the hands stayed raised. "That's the hidden epidemic," Naomi said. "Financial abuse happens across all demographics, all income levels, all education levels. It happens to lawyers, doctors, business owners, and stay-at-home parents. It happens because we trust the people we love, and sometimes those people betray that trust." She shared her story, not all the details, but enough. The discovery, the betrayal, the fight back, the recovery, the transformation. "I'm not sharing this for sympathy," she said. "I'm sharing it because you need to know 3 things. First, if this happens to you, it's not your fault. Abusers are skilled at manipulation. Second, you can survive it. You can recover. You can rebuild. And third, you don't have to do it alone." The Q&A session ran an hour over schedule. Woman after woman stood up with questions, stories, desperate requests for help. Naomi gave out her business cards, made referrals to other services, and stayed until the last person had been heard. Driving home, she felt exhausted but fulfilled. This was what her grandmother's inheritance was really meant for, not luxury vacations or expensive jewelry, but building something that helped people, that created value, that made a difference. Her phone rang. Patricia's name appeared on the screen. "Hey," Naomi answered. "What's up?" "I have someone I want you to meet," Patricia said. "A reporter from The Atlantic. She's doing a feature story on financial abuse survivors who've turned their experience into advocacy. I gave her your name." "Patricia, I don't know if I want that kind of attention. Trust me on this. The more people who hear your story, the more people you can help. Plus, the publicity would be incredible for your business." Naomi agreed to the interview. The reporter, Emily Chin, met her at the office the following week. They talked for 3 hours. Emily asked about everything: the discovery, the investigation, the trial, the recovery, the business. She asked hard questions too. How did Naomi deal with the anger? Did she ever regret pursuing criminal charges? Was it worth the time and emotional energy? "Every second was worth it," Naomi said firmly. "Not just for me, but for every client who comes through my door and sees that holding abusers accountable is possible. Justice matters. Consequences matter. Accountability matters." The article ran 6 weeks later with the headline, "From Victim to Victor: How One Woman Turned Financial Devastation into a Mission." The response was overwhelming. Her website crashed from traffic. Her phone rang constantly with media requests, speaking invitations, and potential clients. The business exploded. Naomi hired more staff, 10 more employees within 2 months, including 3 certified financial planners, 2 attorneys, and 5 victim advocates. They opened a second office across town to handle the volume. But success brought new challenges. Some clients had more complex cases: international fraud, cryptocurrency theft, organized crime connections. Naomi found herself learning constantly, stretching her expertise, collaborating with specialists in fields she'd never worked in before. One case particularly challenged her. A client's ex-husband had hidden millions in offshore accounts and used shell corporations to avoid paying court-ordered restitution. Traditional forensic accounting wasn't enough. They needed international law experts, cryptocurrency tracers, and sophisticated investigative techniques. Naomi assembled a team and worked the case for 8 months. They traced money through 6 countries, uncovered hidden Bitcoin wallets, and found properties registered in fake names. They recovered $3.2 million for their client. The case made national news. Naomi's reputation grew. But so did her understanding of just how sophisticated financial criminals could be. She expanded the business again, bringing on specialists in cybercrime, digital forensics, and international asset recovery. Phoenix Financial Services became more than a recovery firm. It became a comprehensive resource for any kind of financial fraud. 3 years after launching, the company had 45 employees, offices in 3 cities, and annual revenue of $8 million. But more importantly, they'd helped 850 clients recover over $43 million in stolen assets. Naomi received an award from the National Domestic Violence Hotline for her work. She was featured on 60 Minutes. She published a book, Taking Back Control: A Survivor's Guide to Financial Recovery After Abuse. The book became a bestseller. The speaking requests tripled. But through it all, Naomi kept her focus on what mattered: the individual clients, the one-on-one consultations, the personal touch that had helped her survive. She never forgot what it felt like to stare at that empty bank account at 2 a.m., feeling utterly alone and betrayed. She never forgot the fear, the shame, the overwhelming sense of violation. Every client who walked through her door carried that same weight. And Naomi made sure each one left lighter. One afternoon, a young woman named Ashley came in for a consultation. She looked familiar, but Naomi couldn't place her. "I saw you speak 2 years ago," Ashley explained, "at the Women's Business Conference. I was in a terrible situation with my ex-husband. Your speech gave me the courage to fight back. I want to thank you." "Did you recover?" Naomi asked. "Everything. Plus damages. He's in prison now. And I started my own business helping other women with the legal paperwork for restraining orders and divorce filings. Your story inspired mine." Naomi felt tears welling up. This was the ripple effect she'd hoped for: survivors becoming advocates, advocates helping more survivors, each person's recovery inspiring another's. "You did that yourself," Naomi said. "I just showed you it was possible." "Sometimes that's all someone needs," Ashley replied. "To know it's possible." That evening, Naomi updated her business plan. Phoenix Financial Services was expanding again, this time into training programs. They'd teach other financial planners, accountants, and advocates how to work with fraud survivors. They'd create certification programs. They'd build a network of professionals across the country who could provide quality care to victims. The mission was growing beyond her personal capacity. It needed to be sustainable, scalable, something that would outlast her individual involvement. She hired a COO to manage operations and a training director to develop the curriculum. Within 6 months, they launched their first professional training program, a 5-day intensive on trauma-informed financial recovery. 50 professionals from across the country attended. They learned forensic accounting techniques, victim advocacy principles, legal strategies, and practical skills for helping clients rebuild. At the end of the program, a financial planner from Texas approached Naomi. "I've been doing this work informally for years, but I never had proper training. This changed everything. Thank you." Naomi realized she'd found her next chapter. Not just helping individual clients, but creating a whole profession of people who could do this work with skill and compassion. The business continued to grow, but so did Naomi's impact. She testified before Congress about financial abuse. She consulted on legislation to protect victims' assets. She worked with banks to implement better fraud detection systems. Brandon's betrayal, which had once seemed like the end of her world, had actually been the beginning of something far more important. She'd taken her pain and transformed it into purpose. She'd taken her victimization and turned it into power, not the power to hurt others but the power to heal them. That was the real revenge, building a life so meaningful, so impactful, so full of purpose that what he'd done to her became just a footnote in her story. 4 years after launching Phoenix Financial Services, Naomi received a call that would expand her mission in ways she hadn't imagined. "Ms. Mitchell?" a professional voice asked. "This is Dr. Lawrence Abbott from the National Institute of Justice. We're conducting a federal study on financial abuse in domestic relationships, and your work has been recommended as the leading model in the field. Would you consider serving as a consultant on this project?" The NIJ was a research agency of the U.S. Department of Justice. Their studies influenced federal policy, funding priorities, and legislation. This wasn't just recognition, it was an opportunity to shape national standards. "Absolutely," Naomi said. "When do you need me?" The project required her to travel to Washington, D.C. monthly for meetings with researchers, policymakers, and other experts. She met prosecutors specializing in financial crimes, advocates from domestic violence organizations, economists studying the broader impact of financial abuse, and survivors who'd never recovered. The statistics were staggering. Approximately 99% of domestic violence cases involved financial abuse as a control tactic. Victims lost an average of $50,000 to $100,000 over the course of abusive relationships. Only 15% ever recovered any of the stolen money. Many never even tried because they didn't know it was possible. "Your model is unique," Dr. Abbott explained during one meeting. "Most victim services focus on physical safety and emotional support. Very few provide comprehensive financial recovery. Yet economic stability is crucial for victims to escape abusive situations and rebuild their lives." Naomi presented her methodology to the research team. The combination of forensic accounting, legal advocacy, credit repair, and financial planning that Phoenix Financial Services had developed. The sliding scale fee structure that made services accessible. The trauma-informed approach that recognized victims' psychological needs alongside their financial ones. "This should be the standard," one researcher said. "Every major city should have services like this." But that required funding, training, infrastructure, and political will. Naomi found herself learning about grant writing, policy advocacy, and federal funding mechanisms. It wasn't work she'd ever expected to do, but it was necessary to expand beyond her own business. She connected with legislators interested in victims' rights. She testified at committee hearings. She wrote policy briefs explaining why financial recovery services deserved federal funding alongside other victim support programs. The work was slow and frustrating. Politics moved at a glacial pace. But gradually, progress happened. A small grant program was established. Training materials were developed. Model legislation was drafted for states to adapt. Meanwhile, Phoenix Financial Services kept growing. They now had 8 offices across the country, 120 employees, and partnerships with major domestic violence organizations. Naomi's team had helped over 2,000 clients and recovered more than $150 million in stolen assets. But beyond the numbers, it was the individual stories that kept her motivated. Like Teresa, a 58-year-old woman whose husband had forged her signature on documents that reverse mortgaged their paid-off home. They'd recovered the house and sent him to prison. Or Marcus, a man whose wife had maxed out credit cards in his name and destroyed his credit. They'd cleared his name and helped him rebuild. Or Claudia, whose financial advisor, someone she trusted completely, had embezzled her entire retirement fund. They'd recovered the money and ensured he faced criminal charges. Each victory reminded Naomi why this work mattered. One afternoon, Rebecca buzzed her office. "Naomi, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but I think you should talk to her." The woman who entered was young, maybe 25, with a baby on her hip and a toddler clinging to her leg. Her eyes were red from crying. "I saw you on TV," the woman said. 3 years ago. You were talking about your ex-husband stealing your money. I was in the same situation, but I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't think anyone would help me. I just gave up." Naomi's heart broke. "Sit down. Tell me what happened." The woman's story was heartbreaking. Her ex-boyfriend had stolen her identity, opened credit cards in her name, ruined her credit, and disappeared. She'd been turned down for jobs because of the bad credit. She couldn't rent an apartment. She was living in a shelter with her 2 kids. "I don't have money to pay you," the woman said. "But I saw you on TV again last week and I thought, maybe you could just tell me what to do. Give me advice. Something." Naomi looked at this young mother, struggling alone, defeated by a system that should have protected her. This was exactly the person Phoenix Financial Services existed to help. "We're taking your case," Naomi said firmly. "And you're not paying until we recover funds, which we will." Over the next 6 months, Naomi's team worked that case pro bono. They tracked down the ex-boyfriend, documented his fraud, filed criminal charges, and sued him for damages. They worked with credit bureaus to repair the woman's credit. They helped her apply for victim compensation funds. They recovered $35,000, not a fortune but enough for her to get an apartment, buy a reliable car, and start over. Her credit score improved by 200 points. She got a good job. She moved her kids out of the shelter. The woman sent Naomi a card months later. "You saved our lives. Thank you for seeing us when everyone else looked away." That card went on Naomi's office wall alongside dozens of others. Reminders of why she'd built this business, why she fought so hard, why it all mattered. But even as Phoenix Financial Services succeeded, Naomi realized there were limits to what one company could do. The problem was too big. Millions of people experienced financial abuse every year. Her team, no matter how large it grew, could only help thousands. The answer came during a conversation with her COO, Adrian. "We need to franchise the model," he suggested. "Not literally franchise like a McDonald's, but create a licensing system. Train other firms to operate using our methods. Certify them. Create a network." Naomi considered the idea. It would require giving up some control, trusting others to maintain quality standards, risking dilution of the brand. But it would also multiply their impact exponentially. She developed the Phoenix Certification Program. Financial planning firms, legal practices, and victim advocacy organizations could train their staff in Phoenix methods, use Phoenix materials, and become part of the network. In exchange, they paid licensing fees that funded training and quality control. The first cohort included 20 organizations from across the country. Within a year, there were 50 certified Phoenix affiliates. Within 2 years, 150. Now when someone in Kansas City or Portland or Miami needed financial fraud recovery services, they could find a certified provider trained in Phoenix methods. The network was growing, the model was replicating, and the impact was scaling. Naomi's book went into its 5th printing. She was invited to speak internationally: Toronto, London, Sydney. Financial abuse was a global problem, and people worldwide were hungry for solutions. During a speaking engagement in London, a woman approached her afterward. "In the UK, we have almost no services like yours. Banks are starting to recognize financial abuse, but there's nowhere for victims to go for help. Would you consider expanding here?" Naomi hadn't thought about international expansion. But why not? The principles were the same. The need certainly existed. The model could be adapted. Within 6 months, she'd partnered with a UK domestic violence charity to pilot Phoenix methods in London. Within a year, they'd helped 100 British clients recover over £2 million. The model worked everywhere because the problem was everywhere. 5 years after that desperate night staring at an empty bank account, Naomi had built something that would outlive her. A business, yes, but more than that, a movement. A network of professionals dedicated to helping financial abuse survivors recover and rebuild. A methodology that was becoming the standard of care. A proof of concept that economic justice was possible. Brandon had tried to destroy her financially and emotionally. Instead, he'd given her a purpose that transformed thousands of lives. She still remembered his face in the courtroom when the guilty verdict came down. The shock. The disbelief that she'd actually held him accountable. He'd underestimated her completely. But that was his mistake, not hers. 6 years after her divorce, Naomi's professional life was thriving beyond her wildest dreams. But her personal life had taken a back seat, deliberately at first, then almost by habit. She'd dated occasionally. Brief relationships that fizzled when the man realized how busy she was, or when Naomi realized she wasn't truly interested. Trust didn't come easily anymore. She'd built walls without even realizing it. Her therapist, Dr. Sharon Weiss, had been gently pushing her on this for months. "Your work is meaningful and important," Sharon said during one session. "But it can't be your entire life. You deserve connection, joy, and love that has nothing to do with financial fraud or victim advocacy." "I have friends," Naomi protested. "I have a life. Do you? When was the last time you did something just for fun? Not networking, not speaking engagements, not board meetings. Just fun." Naomi couldn't remember. "That's what I thought," Sharon said gently. "You've been in survival mode for 6 years. First surviving the betrayal, then building the business, then expanding it. You've accomplished incredible things. But healing isn't just about professional success. It's also about learning to be vulnerable again, to trust again, to let people in." The conversation bothered Naomi more than she wanted to admit. That night, she looked around her beautiful apartment, the one she'd bought with recovered funds and her business success. It was gorgeous. It was also empty. She'd filled her life with purpose but not with people. Her best friend Lisa called the next day. "Girls' night this Friday. No excuses. We're going out, having drinks, and you're going to interact with humans who aren't clients or employees." Lisa had been Naomi's friend since college. She'd stood by her through the divorce, the trial, and every step of building Phoenix Financial Services. She'd also been increasingly worried about Naomi's isolation. Friday night, Naomi found herself at a wine bar with Lisa and 2 other friends, feeling awkward and out of practice with casual socializing. "You look uncomfortable," her friend Tanya observed. "Like you forgot how to relax." "I'm fine," Naomi insisted. "You've checked your work email 3 times in 10 minutes, Lisa pointed out. "Tonight is about you as a person, not you as CEO of Phoenix Financial Services." Naomi put her phone away. They talked about normal things: upcoming vacations, family drama, a new restaurant opening downtown, a terrible movie one of them had watched. Nothing about fraud, abuse, or financial recovery. Just life. Naomi realized how much she'd missed this. Simple friendship. Laughter. Conversations about nothing important. A man approached their table. "Excuse me, but aren't you Naomi Mitchell? I saw your TED Talk about financial abuse recovery. It was incredible." And just like that, Naomi was back in work mode, discussing Phoenix Financial Services and victim advocacy. Lisa shot her a look but said nothing. Later, walking to their cars, Lisa confronted her. "You need to learn to separate yourself from your work. Yes, what you do is important. But you're more than your trauma and your recovery. You're a person with interests and feelings and needs beyond helping other people." "I don't know how to do that," Naomi admitted. "The work feels so urgent. People need help. How do I just turn that off?" "You don't turn it off," Lisa said. "You create balance. You let other people carry some of the weight. You trust your team to do the work without you micromanaging everything. And you give yourself permission to have a life outside of being a survivor turned advocate." The words stung because they were true. Naomi started small. She joined a book club that had nothing to do with business or finance. They read novels, mysteries, and historical fiction. She took a painting class on weekends. She started saying no to some speaking engagements to keep her schedule manageable. And she started therapy specifically focused on her own healing, not just managing the trauma of running a business that dealt with trauma daily. "You've processed the anger," Dr. Weiss observed. "You've channeled it into something productive. But have you processed the grief? Have you let yourself mourn the person you were before the betrayal? The innocence you lost? The ability to trust freely?" Naomi hadn't. She'd been too busy fighting, building, growing. She hadn't made space to simply feel. The grief work was harder than building a business. It meant sitting with uncomfortable emotions. It meant acknowledging that part of her had died the night she discovered Brandon's betrayal. It meant accepting that she'd never be the same person again. But it also meant making peace with who she'd become. 3 months into this deeper therapeutic work, Naomi attended a charity fundraiser for a domestic violence shelter. She'd committed to going before her renewed focus on work-life balance, and Lisa insisted she follow through. At the event, she met someone unexpected. His name was Jordan Hayes. He was a trauma therapist who worked with veterans and abuse survivors. He'd heard about Phoenix Financial Services and wanted to explore potential partnerships. They talked shop for 20 minutes. Treatment modalities, trauma-informed care, the intersection of financial and psychological abuse. Then the conversation shifted. "Have you eaten?" Jordan asked. "The food here is surprisingly good for a charity event." They got plates and found a quiet corner. The conversation flowed naturally, books they'd both read, places they'd traveled, terrible jokes that made them both laugh. Naomi realized she was enjoying herself. Not networking. Not working. Just talking to an interesting person. Jordan was handsome in an understated way. Kind eyes. Easy smile. He listened more than he talked, asked thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely interested in her as a person, not just as the founder of Phoenix Financial Services. When the event ended, he asked for her number. "I'd like to take you to dinner sometime. A real dinner, not a networking meeting. Just two people getting to know each other." Naomi hesitated. Her automatic instinct was to say no, to protect herself, to maintain her walls. But Sharon's words echoed, "Learning to trust again means taking risks." "I'd like that," Naomi said. Their first date was awkward. Naomi caught herself talking about work constantly, analyzing everything Jordan said for red flags, maintaining emotional distance. Jordan called her on it gently. "You seem tense. Is this too soon? I know you've been through a lot." "I'm sorry," Naomi said. "I'm out of practice with this. And yes, I'm analyzing everything. It's not about you, it's about me not knowing how to let my guard down anymore." "That's honest," Jordan said. "I appreciate that. Take your time. We can go as slow as you need." They went slow. Coffee dates, not dinner dates. Public places, not private ones. Group activities with friends, not intimate settings. Jordan was patient. He shared his own story. He'd been engaged once, years ago, and his fiancée had left him for his best friend. He understood betrayal, if not the specific financial component of Naomi's experience. "I thought I'd never trust anyone again," he admitted. "Then I realized I was punishing every new person for what one person did. That wasn't fair to them or to me." Over months, Naomi slowly let Jordan in. He met her friends. She met his. They shared vulnerabilities, fears, and hopes for the future. Jordan never tried to fix her or save her. He didn't treat her like a victim or a survivor. He treated her like a complete person with a complicated past who was building a meaningful future. "You're remarkable," he told her once. "Not because of what you survived, but because of who you chose to become. You could have let bitterness consume you. Instead, you built something that helps thousands of people. That takes real strength." 10 months after they met, Jordan asked her to move in together. Naomi panicked immediately. "That's too fast," she said. "I'm not ready for that level of commitment." "Okay," Jordan said simply. "I'm not going anywhere. We'll revisit it when you're ready. No pressure. No manipulation. No ultimatums. Just patience." But the conversation forced Naomi to examine her fears. Was she actually not ready, or was she just afraid? And if she was afraid, what was she really afraid of? She talked it through with Sharon. "I'm afraid of being vulnerable again. I'm afraid of trusting someone with my finances, my home, my life. I'm afraid he'll turn out to be another Brandon." "Is Jordan another Brandon?" Sharon asked. "No," Naomi admitted. "He's completely different. He's honest, kind, consistent. He has his own career and his own money. He's never asked about my finances or tried to control anything. He's healthy." "So you're not afraid of Jordan," Sharon observed. "You're afraid of the possibility that anyone could betray you like that again." "Yes," Naomi said. "How do I get past that?" "You accept that you can't control everything. You can't prevent all risk. You can make informed choices and set healthy boundaries, but ultimately, trust requires a leap of faith." Naomi thought about that for weeks. She watched Jordan's actions, his consistency, his respect for her boundaries. She noticed how he handled conflicts, with direct communication, not manipulation. How he supported her work without trying to take credit or control it. How he built his own life alongside hers without demanding she sacrifice hers for his. Finally, 3 months after he'd first asked, Naomi brought it up again. "I've been thinking about moving in together." "And?" Jordan asked carefully. "I want to. But I need some boundaries in place first. Separate finances. Clear agreements about shared expenses. Full transparency about money. Of course, Jordan said immediately. I'd never ask you to merge finances. Given your history and your work, it would be inappropriate and honestly kind of insulting if I expected that. They set up clear agreements. Separate bank accounts. Shared household account they both contributed to equally. Complete financial transparency. Written agreements about property and assets. Jordan never pushed back on any of it. You need to feel safe, he said simply. Whatever makes you feel safe, I'm on board. Moving in together was terrifying and wonderful. Naomi found herself constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Jordan to reveal some hidden dark side. It never happened. Jordan was exactly who he appeared to be, a kind, stable man who loved her and supported her independence. A year after moving in together, Jordan proposed. Naomi's first instinct was panic, but then she looked at this man who'd patiently waited for her to heal, who'd never pressured her, who'd built a partnership with her based on mutual respect and trust. Yes, she said. But we're getting a prenup. Jordan laughed. I'd be disappointed if you didn't want one. They married 2 years after meeting in a small ceremony with close friends and family. The prenup was ironclad, complete financial separation, clear asset protection, agreements about everything. But beyond the legal protections, Naomi had something she thought she'd lost forever, the ability to trust. Not blind trust, she'd never have that again and that was okay. But informed, healthy trust in a partner who'd earned it. Sharon congratulated her during one of their final sessions. You've come full circle. You've healed professionally and personally. You've learned that Brandon's betrayal wasn't about your worth or your judgment, it was about his character. And you've learned you can build healthy relationships again. I couldn't have done it without all the support, Naomi said. You, Lisa, my team and Jordan. It really does take a village. No, Sharon corrected gently. They supported you but you did the work. You chose to heal. You chose to build a meaningful life. You chose to trust again despite your fear. That was all you. Naomi left that session feeling something she hadn't felt in years, complete. Not perfect, she still had moments of fear and doubt. But complete. Professionally successful. Personally fulfilled. Emotionally healthy. Brandon had tried to destroy her, but instead, he pushed her to become someone far stronger than she'd ever been before. 8 years after discovering Brandon's theft, Phoenix Financial Services had evolved into something Naomi had never imagined when she started with one desk in a shared workspace. The company now operated in 12 states with 300 employees. They'd helped over 8,000 clients recover more than $450 million in stolen assets. The Phoenix certification program had trained 500 organizations internationally. Her book was in its 9th printing and translated into 7 languages. But numbers didn't capture the real impact. The lives changed, families saved, futures restored. Naomi stood before a room of 200 newly certified Phoenix associates from around the world, delivering the closing keynote at their annual conference. 8 years ago, I was sitting at my computer at 2 a.m., staring at an empty bank account, feeling like my world had ended, she told them. I felt stupid, ashamed, and utterly alone. I thought I was the only one. I thought I'd never recover. She paused, looking around the room. But I wasn't alone. None of us are. Financial abuse affects millions of people every year. And every single one of those people deserves the chance to recover, not just financially but emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. You are all part of a movement now. When you go back to your communities and help that first client, remember, you're not just recovering money. You're restoring dignity. You're proving that justice is possible. You're showing survivors that they have value beyond what anyone took from them. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. After the conference, Naomi met with her leadership team to discuss next steps. Adrian, her COO, presented expansion plans. We've been approached by partners in Brazil, South Africa, and India. All want to bring Phoenix methods to their countries. That's enormous, Naomi said. Are we ready for that level of global expansion? We've been preparing for it, Adrian said. The certification model scales. The question is whether you're ready to step back and let others lead that growth. It was the conversation Naomi had been avoiding. Phoenix Financial Services was her baby, built from her pain and purpose. Letting go of control felt terrifying. But it was also necessary. I think, Naomi said carefully, we need to create a leadership structure that doesn't depend on me. We need a CEO to run operations, regional directors for international expansion, and a strong board to guide strategy. I can stay on as founder and chair, but day-to-day operations should be someone else's responsibility. Her team looked relieved. They'd been waiting for her to reach this conclusion. "We have the perfect internal candidate," her CFO suggested. "Sarah Jennings. She's run our largest regional office for 3 years, she's brilliant with operations and clients love her." Naomi knew Sarah well. A former prosecutor who'd specialized in financial crimes before joining Phoenix. She was tough, compassionate, and absolutely committed to the mission. "Let's talk to her," Naomi agreed. The transition took 6 months. Sarah stepped into the CEO role with Naomi's full support, bringing fresh energy and new ideas. Naomi moved into the chairman role, focusing on big-picture strategy, policy advocacy, and speaking engagements. It felt strange at first, not being in the center of operations, not making every decision. But it also felt liberating. Naomi had more time for her personal life. She and Jordan started traveling, real vacations, not just work trips. They talked about starting a family. They bought a house together, a beautiful place with a garden and space for a home office. She also started a new project that had been percolating for years, a foundation. The Mitchell Foundation for Financial Justice would do what Phoenix Financial Services couldn't: provide free services to victims who couldn't afford any fees, fund research on financial abuse, advocate for policy changes, and support grassroots organizations doing similar work. Naomi seeded the foundation with $5 million from her own assets. Money recovered from Brandon plus her business success. She recruited a board of experts in domestic violence, financial crimes, and victim advocacy. The foundation launched with a splash at a gala event that raised another $3 million from donors. Naomi's speech made several people cry. "My ex-husband stole $516,000 from me," she said. "But more than the money, he stole my sense of safety, my trust, my belief that the world was fair. The money I recovered. But the real recovery was learning that what he did to me wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I get to decide who I am and what my life means." This foundation exists to help others write new chapters too. To transform pain into purpose. To turn victimization into power, not power over others but power to heal, to rebuild, to thrive. The foundation funded 50 organizations in its first year. They provided grants to domestic violence shelters to hire financial advocates. They funded research at universities studying economic abuse. They supported legal clinics helping victims pursue criminal charges against abusers. And they launched the Mitchell Fellowship Program, full scholarships for survivors of financial abuse to get training as certified financial planners, forensic accountants, or victim advocates. "We're creating the next generation of advocates," Naomi explained to a reporter. "People who've lived through this and want to help others. That lived experience combined with professional training is powerful." The first cohort of Mitchell Fellows included 20 people from diverse backgrounds. A single mother who'd escaped domestic violence. A veteran whose spouse had destroyed his credit. An elderly man whose adult children had exploited him financially. A transgender woman whose partner had sabotaged her career. Each had a story. Each was channeling their pain into purpose. Each would multiply the impact beyond what Naomi could do alone. During the fellowship program, Naomi mentored them personally. She shared not just professional knowledge but her own journey, the mistakes, the doubts, the moments she wanted to give up, and the reasons she kept going. "There will be days when this work breaks your heart," she told them honestly. "Days when you lose cases you should have won. Days when clients give up. Days when the system fails. You have to find ways to sustain yourself through that. For me," she continued, "it's remembering that every person we help is someone who might otherwise have fallen through the cracks. Every dollar we recover is money that can feed kids, pay rent, or rebuild a life. Every abuser we hold accountable is one less person harming others. The work matters even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." One fellow, a woman named Bianca, approached her after. "I was so angry for so long. Angry at my ex, angry at myself, angry at a system that failed me. Your work taught me that anger can be fuel, but purpose is what sustains you. Thank you for that. Those moments made everything worth it." Naomi's speaking engagements evolved too. She moved beyond just telling her story to offering concrete solutions. She consulted with legislators on bills to strengthen financial abuse protections. She worked with banks to develop better fraud detection systems. She partnered with tech companies to create apps helping victims track and document financial abuse. One app they developed, SafeTrace, allowed users to securely document financial abuse in real time, screenshot bank statements, record conversations, photograph documents, with everything encrypted and stored remotely where abusers couldn't access or delete it. The app was downloaded 100,000 times in the first 6 months. Reviews poured in from people who said it helped them build court cases, provided evidence for restraining orders, and gave them courage to leave abusive situations knowing they had documentation. Technology couldn't solve everything, but it could give victims tools they didn't have before. 10 years after Brandon's betrayal, Naomi was invited to testify before Congress again. This time about proposed federal legislation to classify severe financial abuse as a form of domestic violence eligible for victim compensation funds. She sat at the witness table, looking at senators who would decide whether millions of victims got access to resources they desperately needed. Financial abuse destroys lives, Naomi testified. It traps people in abusive relationships because they can't afford to leave. It ruins credit scores, making it impossible to rent apartments or get jobs. It steals futures, retirement savings, college funds, inheritances. And it's shockingly common. Yet most victims never recover because they can't afford legal help and don't qualify for existing victim services. This legislation would change that. It would recognize financial abuse as the serious crime it is. It would provide funding for recovery services. It would give victims a path to justice and rebuilding. I urge you to pass it. The bill passed 6 months later. The Financial Abuse Recovery Act provided $50 million annually for victim services, established federal guidelines for prosecuting financial abuse, and created a compensation fund for victims. It was the culmination of years of advocacy, but more importantly, it would help millions of people Naomi would never meet personally. That night, Jordan took her to dinner to celebrate. "You did it," he said. "You actually changed federal policy." "We did it," Naomi corrected. "None of this happens without the team, the advocates, the survivors who shared their stories. I just had the platform to amplify their voices." Jordan raised his glass. "To amplifying voices. And to you, the most remarkable person I know." Naomi clinked her glass against his, feeling grateful for this man who'd helped her believe in partnership again, who supported her work without needing to be the center of it, who'd patiently waited while she healed. "Brandon thought he destroyed me," Naomi said quietly. "But he just pushed me to become who I was always meant to be. Someone who fights for people who can't fight for themselves. Someone who builds instead of tears down. Someone who turns pain into power." "He made the biggest mistake of his life," Jordan agreed. "Underestimating you." Later that night, Naomi opened her laptop to check messages before bed. An email from one of the Mitchell fellows caught her eye. "Dear Naomi, I just helped my first client recover $40,000 from her ex-husband. She cried when I told her we'd won. She said she thought she'd never get justice. Watching her face light up made me realize why we do this work. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I'm going to help as many people as I can. Bianca." Naomi smiled. This was the real victory, not just her own recovery and success, but creating a ripple effect that would continue long after she was gone. She closed the laptop and joined Jordan on the couch. They talked about their plans for the weekend, about the possibility of adopting a dog, about whether to plant tomatoes or peppers in the garden. Normal life. Beautiful life. Hard-won life. Brandon was somewhere in federal prison serving his sentence. Sienna had gotten out 2 years ago and, according to Frank's occasional updates, was struggling to rebuild with a criminal record. Naomi felt no satisfaction in their suffering, but no sympathy either. They'd made choices. Choices had consequences. That was justice. Her own choices, to fight back, to document everything, to pursue prosecution, to build something meaningful, had also had consequences. Better consequences. Consequences she was proud of. She'd chosen to be a survivor, not a victim. To be a builder, not just a recoverer. To be someone who transformed pain into purpose and helped others do the same. That was the real revenge. Not destroying the people who'd hurt her, but building a life so full of meaning and impact that what they'd done became almost irrelevant. She'd won not by bringing them down, but by rising so far above that they couldn't touch her anymore. 12 years after that devastating night at 2 a.m., Naomi stood before a crowd of 5,000 people at the National Domestic Violence Conference's keynote address. Phoenix Financial Services now operated in 30 states and 15 countries. The Mitchell Foundation had distributed $75 million in grants. The Phoenix Certification Program had trained 2,000 organizations. The Financial Abuse Recovery Act she'd helped pass had provided services to 50,000 victims nationwide. But beyond the impressive numbers, the real story was in the faces looking up at her from the audience. Survivors, advocates, attorneys, counselors, social workers, and fellow warriors against financial abuse. 12 years ago, Naomi began, I thought my life was over. My husband had stolen my entire inheritance, $516,000, and given it to his mistress. He'd forged my signature, destroyed my credit, and violated my trust in every possible way. I felt stupid, ashamed, and utterly alone. I share this not because I want sympathy but because I want you to understand something crucial. The worst moment of your life doesn't have to define your life. It can be a catalyst. A beginning, not an ending. She clicked to the next slide, showing a photo of Phoenix Financial Services' first tiny office. This was where I started. One desk, one dream, and a determination that no one else should face what I faced alone. I wanted to help women protect their assets, recover from theft, and hold abusers accountable. Another slide, Phoenix's current headquarters, a beautiful building in the financial district. This is where we are now. 300 employees. $12 million in annual revenue that gets reinvested into helping more people. But the building isn't the achievement. The achievement is the 15,000 clients we've served. The $800 million we've recovered. The 200 abusers we've helped prosecute. The thousands of lives transformed. The audience applauded. Naomi waited for quiet. Here's what I learned through this journey: justice matters. Accountability matters. But more than that, your own healing and rebuilding matters. You don't need revenge in the sense of destroying the people who hurt you. You need justice, yes. But the best revenge is building a life so meaningful and impactful that what they did becomes just a footnote in your story. She shared stories, carefully anonymized to protect privacy. The woman who'd recovered her stolen retirement and started her own business. The man who'd cleared his name and rebuilt his credit after his ex-wife destroyed it. The elderly couple who'd recovered money stolen by their financial advisor and now traveled the world. Every single one of these people thought recovery was impossible, Naomi said. But recovery is possible. Justice is possible. Building something beautiful from the wreckage is possible. After the keynote, hundreds of people lined up to talk to her. Some were survivors seeking advice. Some were professionals wanting to partner with Phoenix. Some just wanted to thank her for giving them hope. One woman, probably in her 70s, grabbed Naomi's hand. My granddaughter's husband stole from her. She was so ashamed she almost didn't tell anyone. But she saw your story and it gave her courage to fight back. She recovered everything and just started her own business. Thank you for being brave enough to share your story. Thank your granddaughter for being brave enough to fight, Naomi replied. I just showed her it was possible. She did the hard work. That night, back in her hotel room, Naomi video called Jordan. They'd been married for 8 years now, built a life together that was stable, healthy, and full of love. They'd never had kids. Both agreed their work with trauma survivors took enough emotional energy, but they'd adopted 2 rescue dogs who were their family. How was the keynote? Jordan asked. Exhausting and wonderful, Naomi said. Thousands of people all committed to this work. It's amazing how much has changed in 12 years. You changed it, Jordan pointed out. You created this entire ecosystem of services that didn't exist before. Maybe, Naomi acknowledged. But I couldn't have done it alone. That's something else I learned: healing isn't solo work. Building impact isn't solo work. You need a team, a community, people who believe in the mission. They talked about their weekend plans, a hiking trip, just the 2 of them and the dogs. No work, no conferences, no crisis calls. Just time together in nature. Naomi had learned to protect that personal time fiercely. The work would always be there. There would always be more victims needing help, more cases to take, more advocacy to do. But if she didn't maintain her own health and relationships, she'd burn out and be no good to anyone. Sarah called earlier, Naomi mentioned. Phoenix is launching services in Japan next month. And the foundation just got a $10 million grant from a tech billionaire who read my book. He wants to fund the Mitchell Fellowship program for the next 5 years. That's incredible, Jordan said. It is. But you know what's more incredible? I don't need to be involved in every detail anymore. Sarah's running Phoenix brilliantly. The foundation has its own director. The certification program has a whole team. The work continues with or without me at the center. How does that feel? Jordan asked carefully. He knew Naomi had struggled with letting go. Liberating, Naomi said honestly. For years I thought I had to do everything personally. That if I stepped back the mission would fail. But I was wrong. The mission is bigger than me now. It has its own momentum. That means I succeeded. I built something sustainable that will outlast me. That realization had been a hard one. Naomi had worked with an executive coach and her therapist to navigate the transition from founder CEO to chairman advisor. It required ego death, letting go of control, trusting others to carry the vision forward. But it also freed her to focus on what she did best: big picture strategy, policy advocacy, speaking, writing, and mentoring the next generation. Her second book, Building Justice, A Practical Guide to Financial Recovery, had just been published. Unlike her first memoir-style book, this one was pure how-to, step-by-step guides for survivors, attorneys, and advocates navigating financial fraud recovery. It was already being used as a textbook in law schools, social work programs, and financial planning courses. Another way of multiplying impact beyond what she could do personally. Naomi also spent more time mentoring individual survivors who went on to become advocates themselves. People like Bianca, who now ran a regional Phoenix office. Like Teresa, who'd started her own nonprofit helping elderly financial abuse victims. Like Marcus, who worked with male survivors, a often overlooked population. I got an interesting invitation, Naomi told Jordan. A documentary filmmaker wants to make a film about financial abuse, using my story as the central narrative but weaving in other survivors' experiences too. Are you going to do it? I think so. If it reaches more people, raises awareness, and helps victims understand they have options, that seems worth the discomfort of being so public about my story. The documentary took 8 months to film. The director, Ella Morrison, was thoughtful and trauma-informed. She interviewed Naomi, other Phoenix clients, staff members, prosecutors, and experts. She obtained courtroom footage from Brandon's trial. She even got permission to interview other survivors of financial abuse. The resulting film, Recovery, The Hidden Crime of Financial Abuse, premiered at Sundance and won several awards. Netflix picked it up for distribution, putting it in front of millions of viewers worldwide. The impact was immediate and overwhelming. Phoenix's website crashed from traffic. The foundation's donation page was flooded. Victims reached out from around the world seeking help. But most touching were the messages from people who said the documentary made them realize what they'd experienced was abuse, gave them permission to seek help, and showed them recovery was possible. "You're changing culture," Patricia told Naomi over lunch. Patricia had remained a close friend even after the legal case ended. Financial abuse used to be dismissed as just money or civil issues. Now it's being recognized as serious crime. That's because of advocacy like yours. "It's not just me," Naomi protested. "No," Patricia agreed. "But you're the face of it. The story people connect with. The proof that survivors can become advocates and create systemic change. That matters." 14 years after discovering Brandon's theft, Naomi received notification that he was up for parole. She was entitled to make a victim impact statement to the parole board. She debated whether to participate. Part of her wanted nothing to do with Brandon ever again. Part of her wanted to face him one last time, to show him exactly who she'd become. She decided to write a statement but not attend in person. She'd give him no more of her time than necessary. Her statement was brief and powerful. "Brandon Mitchell stole $516,000 from me. But more than money, he stole years of my life to recovery and rebuilding. However, I want this board to know that I did recover. I did rebuild. I built a life and a career far beyond what I had when he was in my life. I created a business that has helped 20,000 people recover from similar crimes. I helped pass federal legislation protecting financial abuse victims. I've turned my pain into purpose and my victimization into power, not power over others but power to heal, build, and serve. Whether Brandon is released early or serves his full sentence is your decision, not mine. I've already moved on. I've already won. My statement today isn't about him. It's about showing other victims that recovery is possible, rebuilding is possible, and that the people who hurt us don't get to define who we become. I wish Brandon nothing. I think about him almost never. He's irrelevant to my life now. That, more than any punishment the court could impose, is the ultimate consequence of his actions. He gambled that I was weak, that I wouldn't fight back, that I'd accept his betrayal. He lost that bet completely. I am stronger, wealthier, more fulfilled, and more successful than I ever was when he was in my life. He is exactly where his choices led him. That is justice." Brandon was denied parole. Naomi felt nothing when she heard the news. He was a closed chapter in her life. What mattered now was the opening chapters. The clients being served today, the fellows being trained, the policies being changed, the culture being shifted. 15 years after that terrible night, Naomi celebrated Phoenix Financial Services' anniversary at a gala event. 500 people attended: staff, clients, partners, donors, advocates, and friends. Sarah, the CEO, gave a beautiful speech about Phoenix's impact. Adrian presented financial results showing sustainable growth and reinvestment into services. The foundation director announced new initiatives. Then Naomi took the stage for closing remarks. She looked out at this room full of people committed to justice for financial abuse victims and felt overwhelming gratitude. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "Thank you for believing in this mission. Thank you for doing the hard, heartbreaking work of helping people recover from betrayal and rebuild their lives. 15 years ago, I was sitting alone at my computer at 2 a.m., staring at an empty bank account, feeling like my world had ended. I never imagined that moment would lead to this. A movement, a community, an entire ecosystem of services helping thousands of people. But here we are. And the work continues. There are still millions of financial abuse victims who need help. There are still systems that need changing. There are still abusers who need holding accountable. We have so much work to do. But here's what I know after 15 years. This work matters. Every dollar we recover matters. Every abuser we prosecute matters. Every victim we help rebuild matters. Every one of you in this room matters. You are changing lives. You are creating justice. You are proving that survivors can heal and thrive and build beautiful futures. So thank you. Thank you for being part of this journey. Thank you for carrying this mission forward. And thank you for reminding me every day that the worst moments of our lives don't have to define us. They can transform us into who we were always meant to be." The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. People were crying. Naomi was crying. Jordan stood in the back, beaming with pride. After the event, a young woman approached Naomi nervously. "Hi, I saw your documentary. My boyfriend stole from me. I thought I was stupid for letting it happen. But you showed me it wasn't my fault. I reported him to the police last week. They arrested him yesterday. Thank you for making me brave." Naomi hugged her. "You made yourself brave. I just showed you it was possible. You did the hard part. You stood up for yourself. I'm proud of you." "What do I do now?" the woman asked. "Now you heal," Naomi said gently. "You rebuild. You get support, therapy, legal help, financial counseling. You take your time. And someday when you're ready, maybe you help someone else who's where you are now. That's how we change the world, one survivor helping another." The woman left with tears streaming down her face but smiling. Jordan appeared at Naomi's side. "Ready to go home?" "Yes," Naomi said. "Let's go home." They drove through the city toward their house, past Phoenix Financial Services headquarters with its lights still glowing, past the foundation offices, past buildings where other organizations were doing similar work, inspired by Phoenix's model. "Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if Brandon hadn't stolen from you?" Jordan asked. "Sometimes," Naomi admitted. "I'd probably still be working at that corporate firm, doing analysis for wealthy clients, living a comfortable but unfulfilling life. I'd never have discovered my true purpose. I'd never have helped thousands of people. I'd never have created this movement. So in a strange way," Jordan trailed off. "In a strange way, his betrayal was the best thing that ever happened to me," Naomi finished. "Not because I wanted it or deserved it, but because of what I chose to do with it. He tried to destroy me, and instead he pushed me to become someone far stronger and more impactful than I ever was before." "The best revenge," Jordan said. "The best revenge," Naomi agreed. "Building a life so meaningful that what he did becomes irrelevant. That's the ultimate victory." They arrived home to their 2 dogs greeting them enthusiastically. Naomi changed into comfortable clothes, poured a glass of wine, and sat on their back porch overlooking the garden. The city lights twinkled below. Somewhere out there, 15 years after Brandon's crime, survivors were finding Phoenix's website, reading her book, watching the documentary, gathering courage to report their abusers, taking first steps toward recovery. And tomorrow, Phoenix's staff would be there to help them. The foundation would fund their services. The certified associates would provide care. The Mitchell Fellows would offer support born from their own experiences. The mission would continue, growing and evolving, long after Naomi herself stepped back completely. That was true success, building something bigger than yourself that outlives you. Naomi thought about her grandmother, who'd worked so hard to save that $340,000 inheritance, who'd wanted Naomi to build something beautiful and be independent and free. She had. Just not in the way either of them expected. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. 20,000 first client just signed up. We've officially helped over 20,000 people. Celebrating at the office tomorrow? Naomi smiled and typed back, absolutely. This calls for cake. 20,000 lives changed. 20,000 people who'd fought back against financial abuse and won. 20,000 stories of recovery, rebuilding, and resilience. And the number would keep growing day by day, case by case, survivor by survivor. Brandon had stolen her money, but he'd given her something far more valuable. A purpose that transformed thousands of lives and would continue long after she was gone. That was justice. That was healing. That was revenge. Not revenge as destruction, but revenge as transformation. Not revenge as lowering herself to his level, but revenge as rising so far above it that he became a footnote in a story about triumph. She'd won. Not just in court, not just financially, but in every way that mattered. She'd built a life of meaning, impact, love, and purpose from the wreckage of betrayal. She'd proven that survivors could become warriors. She'd shown that the people who try to break us can actually make us stronger, not because of what they do but because of what we choose to do in response. And that, Naomi thought as she sipped her wine and looked out at the city lights, was the greatest victory of all.